Hi there, Colin from Adelaide Hills Hedges here. In this video, we're going to be sharpening the blades on this Stihl HSA 66 Electric Hedge Trimmer. That's the model that I'm sharpening, but you can apply what I'm showing you to any make or model as long as the blade configuration is roughly the same. So first things first, we'll go over what tools you're going to need. You're going to need a chainsaw flat file. You can use any flat file, but if you just buy a mill file from the hardware store like this one, the grit's not fine enough. So whatever file you're using, it needs to have fine grit, that like what you see here, and the grits need to be going horizontal like that, so you don't get cross hatching in the blade. And I'll show you what it looks like approximately. You'll see right there, if you can see that there's deep ridges in the blade caused by using a file that has the improper gap. And what you're aiming for, and I've kind of just done one just to start there, is that nice clean finish across the blade. So a chainsaw file is great. I buy the handle and the file separately. At the store, they're going to try and get you to buy a kit that has a file guide for a chainsaw on it, but really what most people won't tell you about doing something like this is the first couple of times you do it, it might suck. You have to get good at something. It's a discipline like anything else, like hedge trimming itself. It gets easier and better the more time you do it. So having the proper tools is necessary, and you can buy the file separate from the handle. I've just got it put together. And also what you're going to need is a small chainsaw file, and the size of this isn't really important. This is used to get in the grooves there where you need to have a little round cut. And you're also going to need something to clip the machine in place here, like what I have. And second of all, you're going to need some work gloves, because I can't think of a better way to cut my knuckles than working on something like this without gloves. So that's all you really need to get started. Some blade cleaner would be good. I keep neglecting to buy blade cleaner because it's much more expensive down here in Australia where I am than it was back home. And I'm doing a protest, and I don't think it's going to work out very well, because I don't see the price of blade cleaner coming down anytime soon. But let's get started here. The most important thing to me, besides sharpening the things properly with the proper tools, is making sure that you're comfortable to do something like this, because this is boring and it can be frustrating, and it can be really sore on your back if you're not comfortable. So I've got a chair pulled up right here where I can sit. I don't need to bend my back, and I can hold the end of the blade in place, and I can also drink a specially formulated hedge trimming drink to keep me occupied inside my mind, to make sure my thoughts don't wander to any dark non-hedge trimming related places. Crisp and cold. Okay, so let's get started. And again, you watch 5 of these videos, you might get 5 different ways to do it. There's some guys who are using angle grinders. There's some guys who are using Dremels, and I actually want to get a Dremel and try doing it that way. I have used the angle grinder many times in the field. You can get an adapter to plug it right into your truck battery, or ute battery as they call it down here. But that takes off a lot of blade, and it's very easy to over sharpen, and it decreases the blade life because it's not a very accurate tool, even though you can get quite good at it. But anyways, first things first, let's get into it. We're just going to work down the blade, and what we're going for is a nice, consistent, smooth finish. And again, this is going to take time, but I think it's the best way to do it. So in addition to cleaning up the edge of the blade, we're also removing the built-up resin that's accumulated on there over time. And you want to make sure that you have enough room to work between this is just a sort of blade bar. Some units have double-sided hedge trimmer blades. It takes a lot longer to sharpen those. This one just has one set of 2-sided cutting blades, and then a little guide bar there to just pinch the material. So you want to make sure you have enough room to work, and if you need more room, what you need to do is just turn the unit on and run the blade until they've kind of repositioned themselves where they should be. I take the battery out when I'm doing this because it's dangerous enough hedge trimming for a living without cutting your hand off while you're trying to sharpen the thing. And you can see there, when I use that mill file, you can still see the grooves that it left in there. So you definitely want to use the proper gridded file. And again, this is just a Husqvarna saw file. You can get them at any Husqvarna dealer, and a Stihl dealer will also carry the Stihl equivalent, but they're the same sort of thing. Some blades will also have an edge that you can sharpen on the outside. This particular unit doesn't, but you can see very distinctly the difference in color, these that I've sort of trimmed, and between that and the one that I haven't sharpened, right? And you'll also see that on this one, I've actually got a bit of a hump in the middle because I haven't been coming across evenly. So let's try and sort that out. There we go. That feels a little better. So once you've got the main part of the blade done, you can get this little curved area sharp, the little corner there, using one of these files. And in my experience, it doesn't have to be perfectly pretty. You can make it pretty. You can even match up the gauge of file you're using to what you think the angle of the corner is. But in my case, I'm not going to do that. I don't think it's worth it. I've been sharpening these things for almost 20 years, and it hasn't made a big difference. You just want the cutting, all the cutting surfaces, you want them to be clean, and you just want to have a good edge across the bottom. So I'll do another one here just so that you can see what I'm doing. I don't see the need to sit here and do the whole thing on camera. I don't think anybody would be amused with that, but look, just getting your stuff sharp is important. Dull hedge trimmer blades don't cut, they chew and tear. And if you don't have a sharp blade and you're chewing and cutting the material, those wounds on the plant don't heal properly, and that reduces growth over time, and sometimes you end up with half-cut, chewed, dead foliage all over the thing. And again, this is a slow method of doing things. It requires patience, and whatever you have to do to get through that process, like I say, if you need to have some specially formulated hedge trimmer juice to get you through it, I'm all on board with that. And this one here, as I'm going, I've just kind of been able to drag it into the corner and clean that up really well enough for me. So I don't think I'm gonna even have to file that one. Beyond sharpening these blades, the second most important thing is to lubricate them. And you can use WD-40. You can use a knockoff WD-40, and those will work just fine. The special formulated blade cleaner stuff that they sell you in the dealers, that stuff is good for cleaning. Like I just don't have some, but I would usually put that on before I sharpen. And also, I'll have some of that in my truck, and while I'm working, I'll lubricate with WD-40 or any kind of sort of general purpose lubricant. And then at the end of the day, before I put these things back into the sheath, I'll put the blade cleaner on, and that'll just sit there overnight and keep things nice and clean and stop stuff from building up. If you don't have blade cleaner, you should also just give your machine a little spray before you put it away. But basically, you can see what I've done there. And to me, that looks fine, and I'll bet that'll cut really good. This is a smaller electronic unit. I'm not going to be using it to cut big gruesome stuff. So the thicker material that you cut, or anything with more sap, you know, a kind of conifer or a sappy deciduous tree, that's when you're going to get buildup on the blades. But for cutting fine, well-maintained stuff like boxwood, that's why you really want to keep these things sharp, because then you'll get a really good finish. And a little tip is, it's an expensive thing to do, but if you can actually afford 2 different machines, or if you have detachable blade units that you can put on a power head, if you run 2 separate blades, dedicate one to trimming finer stuff and dedicate the other one to trimming thicker stuff. And when your fine unit gets dull, switch it off to cutting the thicker stuff, and take the unit you had for the thicker stuff, sharpen that one up nicely, and use it for the fine stuff, and you'll be sharpening a lot less. So there you go. You got 3 teeth that are in pretty good shape there. I'll do the rest, and we'll check in. I'm going to actually see, as a bonus component to this video, I'm going to see if we can open this up and get a little grease on the gearbox, because this belongs to my father-in-law, and he told me it hasn't been greased. And that's the thing about a lot of these electronic tools, is the maintenance is a bit of a question mark. But if there's a gearbox moving metal parts in there, they should definitely be greased. As we move down closer to the engine, it's going to be tough to get access to these points here. So you're going to have to change the position of the hedge trimmer. And again, this little C-clamp, the spring-loaded cheapie that I got from Bunnings, which is Home Depot kind of deal in the States, is doing the job. And you might have to take that handy little handle off the file to get into some of these spots here. Make sure that you can still get access. And you might have to stand up, which, you know, I don't know. Some people think that anything you have to stand up to do on the weekend is not worth doing, but you know what? I haven't had access to a shop or a workbench like this for a number of years, and it's nice to have this, so I want to keep everything running good. The other thing I want to mention, and we're always learning, we're always adapting, but I've been finding that just starting off in the edge with the file and just kind of I'm pushing it down and dragging it back and doing that first is giving me a cleaner edge than using the little soft file. And again, you kind of want to look out. I'm getting a little bit of a bevel there, so you kind of want to work to flatten that out. Now, you can remove parts of the hedge trimmer for better access, but I'm trying to do this relatively quickly with time in mind. And in the past, I've broken a file down to a smaller size to get into little areas like that. And that is the advantage of using an angle grinder. You'd be coming in this way and working into the tooth and then going back. And with a Dremel, that might work as well. And if you're getting anything out of this video, please do like the video and subscribe, because I'm probably going to be buying a Dremel off Amazon and giving that a go. So, yeah. There we go. That's sorted that bevel out. And when I say bevel, you look at it and you watch the light reflect off the blade. And if you see a line down the center, that means that the blade is actually, I guess that'd be a convex bevel. Would that be the term there? And you don't want that. You want a nice, as flat as possible. And it does get tricky when you're negotiating with space as you get down close to the engine. But you know what? You just take your time and do the best you can. And the aggregate of everything being sharper is usually obviously much better than everything being dull as all heck. And of course, you can have some specially formulated hedge trimmer juice to ease the pains of any awkward positions your back might be complaining about. I just wanted to show you here how I've just managed to clamp down the machine to do the opposite side of the blades. And really, the only thing that matters is it works. You can get quite creative, especially with these electronic units, because there's no oil or gas that you kind of got to worry about moving around. But even if this were an oil or gas machine, it doesn't matter, because they're made to be operated at all kinds of angles. So I've just looked up here and thought, oh geez, I could clamp it there, and I twisted it around, put the clamp on, and now I can work on the other side of these blades without any issue. And the underside of this particular unit is going to be a lot quicker and easier to work on, because there's no impeded access by the blade guard hanging over there. So now we have nice, sharp, clean edges on both sides of the trimmer. Things are looking sharp, and if you just look up along there, you can see with your naked eye the difference in color between the cutting edge and then the top of the blade, and that's exactly what we're going for. And that should look as uniform as possible. This one here is a particularly good blade. Got a nice straight edge there and a good bevel. Of course, as you go on, this is fairly time consuming, and naturally you're going to lose patience. I need this thing sharp for tomorrow. So some of the corners particularly I didn't get as nice as I want, but I have no doubt that this will be great for sharpening, for trimming boxwoods and little viburnums tomorrow. I have no doubt about that at all. And the key to keeping this thing sharp is going to be using it on finer material, not getting into that thicker stuff, not using this on thick conifers. And then second of all, keeping the blade lubricated throughout the working day, and then putting some of that blade resin cleaner on it at the end of the day. And I am going to pick up some of that for tomorrow. Now, as a bonus feature to this video, we're going to see if we can get the gearbox opened up and grease it. All right, we're going to see if we can get in here and grease this gearbox. So we're going to remove these two bolts and see how involved it is. I want to keep these videos short, so if this is not reasonable to go in here. Oh, there's the gearbox right there. Okay, and look at that. We've got quite a bit of debris in there. We got pieces of wood, and you know what? The whole time I was sharpening this, I kept smelling rosemary, and I think I can see why. There's old rosemary all up inside of this thing. Let's take one of these handy little cloths that I have, and let's just try and get as much of this out of here as possible. Eventually I want to get an air compressor and use it to kind of blow debris out of these kind of areas. But for now, I'm not going to be too picky about this because it was in there and still working okay. So for the time being, I'm just going to try and get it looking better than it was. I've actually got this factory grease that came with one of the Husqvarna units, so I'm just going to use that. I'm just going to use my gloved finger to get grease into these areas, down onto the machine there. I'm not going to overdo it, but it just doesn't look like there's much in the way of grease, to be honest with you, anywhere in there. So, yeah. Again, I kept smelling rosemary in there, and now we know why. This might seem like a crude way to do it, but in my opinion, it's also the best way to do it. We just want to protect this thing and its moving parts from undue friction. So, and now that I'm here kind of helping out on the farm here, I'll make sure that this is done once a year. I think with this unit should be fine. If you're using this thing professionally and or a heavier machine every day, really things should be greased once a week, in my opinion. And that reminds me, I need to grease my articulating hedge trimmer. So yeah, got that greased up. I'm pretty happy with that. You might get a different opinion about how much these things should be greased. I'm always interested in different opinions. If you have one in the comments about anything you've seen in this video, please do let me know, because I'm also not afraid to learn something, even though I do try to avoid it since high school and since I dropped out of clown college. But that is another story. Anyways, got that greased up as a little bonus component to this video. And there wasn't too much muss or fuss involved there. If you've enjoyed this video and learned anything or just have anything to add, follow me as I build my business. I've got a new company started here specializing in hedge trimming in the Adelaide Hills of South Australia. I'm going to try and put out videos as often as I possibly can, and I'm just trying to film everything that I'm doing that I think will be of general interest. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. Take very good care of yourself and never over tighten your hedge trimmer bolts, especially when everything is plastic.